Marcos from the Delray Beach Open, who's going to be playing here pretty soon. Mr. Marcos Giron joining us. Marcos, pleasure to have you. What's going on?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, thanks for hopping on.
Give me a feel here. So this is a year number 4 or 5 for you playing this event. You're here every year. February, this has sort of become a staple now, and where you play on tour in the ATP. Give me a feel about what you feel about the Delray Beach Open. Are you feeling the vibes? You feeling the energy? Give me a sense.
You know, for me, I live in California, but for, being here, we're close to the beach, and so I always feel like, it's the other side of the coast, but it always feels a little like home. I've actually been playing in Delray. They had a clay court tournament for juniors.
Yes.
And so I've been here since, probably since I was 12, 13 at this same facility, and so it's kind of wild,
Working your way up from the clay courts over there as a junior.
It's crazy to think about. It's been so long, but no, I always love it. Like obviously being American, I love playing events that are in the States. I wish there were more, but so for me, I love it.
Absolutely, and especially the beginning part of the year where the weather's not as great throughout the United States. That's where you're traveling about.
Oh, yeah,
and that's where you're all over the place. The Australian Open, you were just in China or Taiwan, I believe, or China.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you were all over the place. Now, in terms of getting settled, I think that's the biggest challenge with a tennis player is the trying to get settled in these tournaments because you're traveling all over the world. And is there sort of a routine that you kind of mastered going to all these different places, all these different tournaments?
Yeah, the tour's nuts with that way. I mean, started the year in Australia, I went back home, then Taipei for Davis Cup, then back to Dallas, and now here. Yeah, it's been crazy. But, I guess it keeps you, it's exciting. Every week
keeps you young, I guess, right?
I don't know if it does, but hopefully.
It ages you a couple years, maybe.
Yeah, but anyways, I mean, it's honestly, when you start on tour, it's a hard thing traveling that much, getting used to it, new bed, new, pillows change every week.
Yep.
But try and get good sleep. I know it's silly, but try and get good sleep is always important. Stay up the first day whenever you do international travel until it's bedtime and then knock out. That's always what I try to do. And then, I don't know, kind of explore the city, like go play a little bit. And it's crazy, but each week now I've kind of learned to make wherever that is that's home for the week and make the most of it.
Now, do you have any pre-match rituals? Do you have a wristband you wear every single match? Do you have a special?
You have a lucky one?
Yeah. Do you have anything that'll give you that good luck for the match that you've been doing?
Yeah. To always just keep using the same wristband. Don't wash it.
Right. Yeah. Listen, hockey players don't wash their jerseys. It's a whole thing here, right?
Yeah. No, I think usually it's whatever you have for breakfast that day. If you feel good, you win. You kind of keep doing the same thing. But I try not to be too. I guess ritualistic about it, but yeah, it's hard not to keep doing once the system gets going. Yeah.
A little more off that, talk about the mentality of a tennis player too. It kind of reminds me of golf a little bit because it's basically versus kind of in your own head kind of thing with tennis. Sometimes it's you and the other person. With golf, it's kind of just you're playing against the course and other people. But I feel like tennis and golf are kind of similar in
the
that.
individualist nature. You're the only one who could save you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a sense to that.
Yeah, I think it's it's a beautiful thing, but it's also can be a real,
right.
It can be tough at times. But yeah, it's brutal. I think this and boxing are the only one-on-one kind of, or fighting, UFC fighting, whatever it is, the one-on-one. And so yeah, each match is an absolute battle. You have your strategy that you want to do. You have your opponent trying to expose your weakness, try to use your strengths into their weakness, hopefully. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. You can have the best game plan, but if somebody just elevates and plays too good, you got to adapt and try to make the most of it. Golf is epic. I love playing. I wish I was better, but it's crazy.
Don't we all?
I know the thing's not moving. You think it's so easy, but
you got the tennis player too. It's hard to kind of change that into a golf swing.
I don't know. You think you spend your whole life with a little hand-eye coordination, you'd be okay. But no, it's fun. In golf you have the course. Exposing your weaknesses versus the opponent, but yeah, it's crazy when I think golf can be almost in a way a little more mental with that. But in tennis at this point when you're playing professional, everybody hits the ball damn well, and many times it's just what's between the ears that can make the difference.
Marcos Giron joining Ruslan Rizzo now on ESPN 106.3. Top 50 in singles in the ATP on the tour right now at the Delray Beach Open. Marcos, about this tournament too, you lost in the semifinals last year to the now champion, defending champion Taylor Fritz, and you're getting close. You're sort of knocking on the door here to get to the next level of that. Are your eyes set on getting back, taking on Fritz again? You got to get to the next level here. What's the mentality coming into this tournament?
Well, rematch.
I would love a rematch.
Round 2.
I'd love a rematch, but that's honestly kind of it feels like a lifetime away. I mean, I got Ethan Quinn tomorrow, and I guess that's kind of, I don't know, the beauty of the sport is that every single day you got an opponent, and whatever's happened in the past doesn't matter. It's however good you are today in this moment and the next point. And so I think it's hard to kind of keep that in mind all the time. You can be playing phenomenal and the opponent plays better. You can be playing terrible, but somehow you're kind of in it. And so it's of course it's hard to not sometimes look at the draw and look ahead, but I think that can be the end for many.
From a professional standpoint, I'm curious about this too. Of course, at Delray Beach Open, you're playing on hard court, but you're playing all around the world, so your surfaces change, and that is a big deal. From the outside looking in, I guess the regular person who doesn't play tennis on different surfaces, whether it be clay, grass, whatever it may be, they don't necessarily understand the differences that go into it. Of course, there's the tennis players that specialize in certain surfaces. You've played on all of these as well. In terms of playing on a hard court this time of the year, can you give the fans a sense of playing on the different surfaces?
Oh, yeah, no, it's amazing how much the conditions can change what happens, whether –
game plans change.
Yeah, game plans change. What type of shot is effective versus not effective on a so let's say on a hard court if it's not gritty. So like the ranges can be on hard. Typically, hard court is quicker and a more consistent bounce than let's say clay. Clay is known to be, you have a pretty firm surface and then you got clay on top of it, so it has imperfect bounces. On grass, it's faster, but it can change tremendously because on hard court, it can be like sandpaper, but not very fine, and so the ball kind of shoots through. So a flat ball is very effective, but like next week in Acapulco, it's going to be playing on the coarsest sandpaper you've ever felt, and so the ball hits and it just checks completely straight, goes straight up, and so a flat ball, let's say here, is going to be more effective than next week, and so. Maybe on certain conditions I'm looking, okay, I'm going to really look to take the ball early. If the ball's up, I'm going to hit super hard, super flat, and sometimes it's going to be, let's say next week, it's going to be a little bit more, okay, I'm going to maybe not hit as hard. I'm going to be playing with more height over the net, and maybe if they try to inject, I'll use their pace against them. On clay, it can be very dependent. Like during the day and it's hot, the clay is very dry, and so you're slipping and sliding all over the place, and it's actually quite fast because like you don't move well, and so if you hit a good ball, somebody gets there, can try and loop, but you're kind of sliding out of position. Many of the Europeans, the guys who grew up on clay, are very comfortable on that. But then if you play at night, it's super thick, and it's hard. It's because it's clay and it's imperfect bounces. It's hard to trust taking the ball early, and so it's colder, it's heavier, the ball goes nowhere. And on grass, same deal. Like the balls have also gotten heavier, and it's also very ball dependent as well. And so, sorry, that's kind of a lot.
No, but isn't that fascinating? There's a professional's perspective
Correct.
on even the different types of hard surfaces, the whole thing.
Which one do you prefer the most?
Typically lower bouncing, to be honest.
Okay.
Growing up in California, courts like when you're young, they're fast there. They don't resurface them that often, so it really rewards people who strike the ball hard, flat, typically. Of course, not all the time, but also I'm not, I think, I like to think I'm a big guy, but I'm kind of 5'10", 5'10", and everybody.
6'8", depends who you ask.
Yeah.
With
the right shoes, I'm over 6. But everyone on tour now is like 6'4", 6'5". Everyone, and that's kind of how sports is going.
Yep.
And so I think it also is kind of a little bit of advantage for me when it's a little bit, things stay at my level.
And one thing about you, too, is you've had a big year in terms of the opponents that you've had to deal with in some places. You played Zverev over in Vienna. You played Sinner at the Australian Open. You've played some of these big-time, the top-tier guys. Give me a sense of when it comes to you're playing in events, you want to make sure you're in your own game, but then all of a sudden when you're playing these top-of-the-line guys, you almost have to be perfect. Yeah. And that is sort of the nature, and if there's that one little crack in the armor, that's where, like, the perfectionists of the group, if you're on clay and you're playing Nadal, and all of a sudden it's like you're getting suffocated.
Forget about it.
Yeah, forget about it.
Best clay player ever, right?
You've played on some of these great players. Give me a sense of what it's like when you start to playing like these the Fritzes of the world, and what changes sort of in terms of preparation when you start to play
the margins get smaller. They make their shots. It's amazing what the difference of a ball that's good versus bad. The margins are very, very small. If you hit a ball that's 2 miles an hour faster, it can be effective, or it could be 2 miles an hour slower, and maybe somebody feels like they have all the time in the world. And so those guys seem to hit the ball just a little closer to the line, a little harder or just a little more out of reach.
And it makes the world of a difference.
And if you hit a ball that's slightly not as good, they take a little more opportunity, and it's just edges over and over and over. And they typically have more weapons, and it's kind of and it's all around. And so you're dealing with smaller margins, and you got to be able to handle that level from start to finish. There's no letting up, or else you walk off the court in an hour 15 minutes.
Is there somebody? Is there a toughest opponent you've ever had to deal with that pops to mind right now?
I mean,
location and surface and everything. Circumstances.
I mean, Sinner in Australia. He's won the last two. It's not that
and
easy.
He's playing
I lost to Rafa there also.
Mm-hmm.
I would say those two guys, Daniil, when he was playing, I mean, he's obviously still top 10 in the world, but when he was not missing a ball, epic. I would say Sinner Australia.
Did you ever play Federer?
I never got to play Fed or Novak.
You never got to play Federer or Novak? Well, Novak might happen soon. He's still going.
I'd love to at some point.
As a competitor, isn't that what you want, though? Play the best of the best and have a chance to beat the best of the best any given day.
Absolutely. And I think, obviously you're going to play more often the deeper you're on the events.
Right.
And so that's something I got to do. I got to do more often at the bigger events, go deeper. And if I do that, I'm going to be playing against the best players in the world. So I'd love to play them, and that's obviously where you want to be. You don't want to be playing them first round because then that's pretty tough.
Yep.
Marcos Giron joining us on Russo and Rizzo. Marco, you're a California guy. Thousand Oaks, California, if I got that right. So Southern California. Give me a sense of what it's like kind of growing up in the tennis scene there. One thing about tennis players is if you're a tennis player, you're a tennis player. Like, that is your life. And it's almost a sense of perfectionism that is attached to it. Give me a sense of growing up in California, sort of the scene of tennis, how it kind of graduated through that and how you sort of developed your career.
Yeah, it's where, I don't know, we may all be a little bit psychotic to a point, the ones that keep playing.
That's how you got to be great.
Yeah, but I had I was really fortunate. Where I grew up, I had a coach who really cared and always believed in me. There was like three guys that were older than me, these three guys that were all top 10 in the nation that went to college D1, and so I was kind of the young guy trying to keep up with them. My parents were always very supportive, and so I was lucky, I was lucky in that sense. But I don't know what it was about Thousand Oaks. There was actually quite a good, like the Bryan Bros grew up in Thousand Oaks, which is one city over. Sam Querrey, who grew up, who's maybe
He's here, yeah, he was here
five, 6 years older than me. He was taught, I think he got to 10 in the world. He grew up in Thousand Oaks, so I don't know. Maybe it's just something about it.
There's something in the water there.
There's something in the water. There's it's I don't know, good weather all year round. But yeah, I don't know why.
Is there someone you grew up watching that you really loved and that you wanted to emulate your game after?
I mean, it was growing up when I was young. It was Pete Sampras and Andre Agassi, the two Americans. Leading the. And then after that, it was hard not to be a fan of Federer, Del Potro, Novak. Rafa, I feel like I wasn't a big fan until like later in my life where I really got to appreciate it. He's
so
a hell
Federer.
Rafa's so wired differently from the rest of them because like Federer seems like such a nice guy, and then he almost just kind of suffocates you as a player, and then Rafa's just like the machine, the bull.
Yeah, I kind of thought he was always full of it, but the guy's just a machine. He's like, oh no, I respect every guy.
You gotta respect him,
but he's like that. He's just like he's a genuinely nice dude, but he's a killer dude on court. He's
it's the fiery European in him. Right?
It's epic. He's a good dude, and I respect the hell out of all of them.
And I tell you right now, South Florida this time of the year, I don't think you could get better weather anywhere in the country. Appreciating where you're playing a tournament right now,
this is
especially in the States. You're not over in Australia, 30 hours away from like the nearest American city.
This is a beautiful place to be right now.
All right, interesting. Well, Marcos, we appreciate you giving us the time here. We appreciate you carving out about 20 minutes when you're doing your prep and doing whatever you got to do. Appreciate it. Best of luck this tournament. Looking forward to watching it, and we'll speak soon.
Cool, guys. Thanks for having me.
You got it, Marcos Giron, the ATP player over at the Delray Beach Open Top 50 in singles. We got to take a time out here. Russo and Rizzo, ESPN.